Good evening and welcome to Bronx Talk. In September, the City Planning Commission approved Mayor Adams' City of Yes for Housing Opportunity Plan, which is a sweeping rezoning to encourage the building of new housing and opportunities for business. However, the plan has not sailed through without objection. Members of the City Council drew up an alternative plan called the City of All, which we will talk about tonight. And in fact, a majority of Bronx community boards have opposed the City of Yes. So tonight we'll give you a look at the City of Yes proposals, chat with two advocates who think it's the wrong direction for the city's development plans. Please join me in welcoming the co-founders of a group called Protect Bronx Neighborhoods from Overdevelopment, which is a coalition of Bronx civic associations representing 30 neighborhoods united over opposition to City of Yes. Always nice to see Laura Spalter in our studio. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you.
And coming to us virtually from elsewhere is Karen Argenti. Nice to see you too, Karen. Laura, let's start with you. So we're just to be straightforward, we're recording this on Thursday, November 21st, and the City Council is voting, or the City Council subcommittee is voting on the City of Yes plan as we speak. Mm-hmm. So there's this, and then what else is happening to get it approved or denied or modified by the City Council?
Well, my understanding is that this is a committee vote today that is going on. Some compromises will be made. We don't know what right now. And then the full City Council will vote on December 5th. And so there's still time for your listeners to call their City Council person.
Well, depending on how convincing you are. It's the City Council Subcommittee on Zoning and Franchises. That's headed by Kevin Riley, a Bronx
Correct.
representative. You and your colleagues have talked to Councilman Riley. We had him on the show. It didn't come up. What do you think his perspective is, and how do you think it's going to go today?
Well, there's been a number of objections to City of Yes, mainly that there's no affordable units being offered. Mm-hmm. It's just voluntary. So based on the lack of affordable housing, and there is a crisis for affordable housing in the city.
We'll get into all that, but do you think that the council members are ready to just say, well, okay? Do you think they will modify it?
Well,
what is the sense
we have
that you
presented our issues, which affordability, the lack of public input, the destruction of the parking, the environment. We have given them our issues. To them, their office.
So it sounds like you don't really know.
I don't really know.
You don't have a sense. They've been closed mouth.
I think we have had some input. We hope so. Karen and I and others have appeared at hearings that have gone for 15 hours. We have testified on behalf.
I'm only laughing because 15 hours is kind of incredible.
So we have emailed, we have testified, we have put letters into the paper, we have advocated, and so have members of our group.
No real commitments. Nobody says, you know what, this is a bad idea. Everybody's kind of...
They think some things are a bad idea, but I really hesitate to speak for them at this juncture.
The votes will tell.
Yes.
Let's bring Karen Argenti into the conversation.
Sure.
Karen, your thought about whether this committee and then ultimately the council will pass it?
Clearly, our council person is against this.
Are you talking about the council member Dinowitz?
Councilman Eric Dinowitz is against the proposal as it stands. It remains to be seen what they, negotiate in these two meetings that they had today. And we've met with some of the people that are members of those committees, and we've tried to get into their staff and talk to them. And so we explained all the things that maybe they didn't get to see because it's a big document. There's a lot there. And so, it's always a risk. You don't know what's going to happen, which is why when Laura said they have plenty of time because we're going to have 2 weeks before it's going to go to the City Council. And actually in between that thing, the mayor is going to review, or city planning and for the mayor is going to review the changes that the City Council puts forward. We would hope that the City Council would put forward an agreement that said, we can't vote on this at all, and this is what we want to do instead. Because all of the things in their City of All is stuff they can do right now.
We're going to review actually both the City of Yes and the City of All. I just want to get into this, what do we expect piece. Do you see the City Council doing something like, the way I made an analogy was to the Metro North Area Plan. That the plan came out, there were some who thought it was great, and there were many benefits for the Bronx, but then ultimately before the council put the check mark on it, there were modifications that the local council member put through and others. Now I realize that's a more limited plan because it's Bronx and maybe we in the Bronx could control it. But do you see this process being like that the council members will offer modifications and then ultimately come through with something?
Right, and you may remember the Croton Water Treatment Plant and how that project had a memorandum of agreement in 1999, which included the CAC, the pedestrian bridge, which has never been built, and opening up the golf house, which still
also hasn't been done.
Which is like, what, I don't know, 20 years later? Yeah. And so you could make agreements as a city council and
still not have stuff. Listen, you and I, of course, worked on that for years. One of the other things that did happen is they were going to dig a trench from Marshall Park. This is off the trail, folks.
Right,
but it's worth mentioning they were going to dig a trench from all the way over there, the Marshall Golf Course, all the way down to Hunts Point, and then of course they abandoned that.
Gary,
anyway.
the City for All.
Go ahead.
City for All has many wonderful things in it, all unfunded. And those are things that they could do now, they could do first. They want money for infrastructure. There's no infrastructure with City of Yes. Do the infrastructure first. They have issues, they're presenting for more affordable housing, more subsidies, greater involvement. They could do a lot of that stuff without City of Yes. It has nothing to do with City of Yes.
Let's put up these
pie in the sky.
Yeah, let's put up some summaries of the City of Yes. These were just some items that I picked out. It's obviously a very long document. So we'll put that on the screen. We'll let people see what it is, and then we'll let you both respond to it. So let's get that on the screen. Eliminate requirement for buildings to add off-street parking, which is a requirement now that they have to provide parking. Now they want to eliminate that. Allow developers who build affordable units to increase the number of dwelling units by 20% or more, meaning larger buildings and larger properties. Authorize small apartment buildings near all train stations. Make it easier to convert office buildings into housing. Allow homeowners to add dwelling units by converting garages, basements, or backyards. Allow more types of in-home businesses, and allow more businesses to be located on upper floors of buildings. What stands out to you?
Well, first I need to say that all the ideas for the more than 1,000 pages of zoning changes, there's a lot, but all of them, where did they come from? Where did they originate? They came from the BLAST committee. BLAST stands for Building and Land Use Approval Streamlining Task Force, or BLAST. This was a committee formed by the mayor of lobbyists for developers, the real estate industry, and the housing industry. They put their wish list together, and we have City of Yes. This is a gift to them. So I'll start with parking.
That is a fascinating point, and I really appreciate you bringing that up. I hadn't heard that. That's fascinating.
Well, the list is published of who's part of the BLAST committee.
We appreciate you bringing that to us.
You might remember as a transition that when we did other projects, we met with city planning for at least a year, the community, like when they downzoned the area in Bearcolen Village, or when they did the filtration plan, we were meeting with people for years before anything ever happened. In this case, they were meeting with the developers instead of with the public.
Now they claim, Karen, on that note, they claim that they've done historic outreach, that they've had hearings. You mentioned, Laura mentioned a 15-hour hearing. So do you feel like they did not do their due diligence?
After the fact. After they already
so you're saying
crafted
before
prior to 1,000 pages.
That's interesting.
In ink. But you mentioned, you ticked off so many issues. Let me
Well,
just
we want to
begin.
start with the parking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the outer boroughs, the Bronx, the outer boroughs, we don't have adequate infrastructure, buses, subways. We can't get from one area of the Bronx easily to another area. Bronxites need their cars to get to work, to get to business, shopping. They're not giving up their cars, and they shouldn't have to. The fact is, we're in a parking desert right now in all areas of the Bronx. And if you have new construction going up on the City of Yes and they don't have to have any parking, that's going to exacerbate a problem that's already a problem. And also, Gary, bear in mind...
So let's just be clear so people understand it. So you could, now if you build a building, there's a requirement for, I think
in the building,
30% of the dwellings need to have a parking space. What this now would propose is to
removes it.
eliminate that.
That's right.
So they could put up a building and people
Zero
would come
parking.
in without parking.
That's right. Now, if a developer wanted to do that now, they can ask for a variance. There is a process for that. It could go to the Board of Standards and Appeals. We have a whole system set up if that needs to be negotiated. But to absolutely get rid of it, when, bear in mind, in just a few months, you're going to be losing parking spaces to the new Department of Sanitation, what do you call them? The
Garbage pails.
the garbage out in the street.
The compost.
Yeah. Not just compost,
But
all the garbage. Yeah.
And
You're
we
gonna be
lost
losing,
parking spaces because of the double buses.
and
You know that.
city bike and everything else. So
bikes.
you're just squeezing
Karen,
the
hang on
quality
one
of life.
second. There was an op-ed piece in the Daily News say that the City of Yes housing package is largely about allowing construction of the sort that had once already been standard in New York City, acknowledging that needs are shared and we should be cumulatively moving away from overt reliance on things like parking in a city that is so transit rich.
Oh, we can all ride bicycles to get to our jobs and work. I think that's fanciful.
Yeah, I think it is. That was in the Daily News the other day. Karen, let's just talk about that whole notion of putting up buildings that are going to charge $3,500 and call it affordable, $3,500 for maybe a studio and call it affordable, and then expect those people to be the subway riders.
Right. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. It's just it's ridiculous. And there are places already, like in Manhattan, south of 96th Street, where it applies. So, yeah, in Manhattan, you need that. You have no place to park, and they really want to make you pay.
Yes, but the transit in Manhattan is a lot different than the transit in the East Bronx or in parts of the South Bronx.
And you can walk from one side of Manhattan to the other. It's little. It's not.
Karen, I want to ask you, Ben, and you both can weigh in because I know it's a big thing on the affordable piece. Now, they say that if you build some affordable housing within a building, then you can increase the number of dwelling units. Is that not encouraging affordable housing in this plan?
It's voluntary. It's not required.
Not required.
It's voluntary.
So then, if somebody says I don't want the extra 20%, then they don't have to put in affordable housing.
So that will get us. If they get that, they predict that will get us 20,000 people, 20,000 affordable housing units, quote, in 15 years, and we have already been building more than that. I sent a bunch of details, and so you could see that we have already been building more than that over the years. We built like 20,000. I don't know how to do this.
So I have 29,000 affordable units in fiscal year 2024 alone.
Right.
This shames the City of Yes on their 15-year projection by HPD under current zoning. It's a sham. It really is. And politicians keep saying this is going to solve it. You have to understand, Gary, it's all about building luxury and market rate housing. It is not housing for the middle class and the working class because it's voluntary.
So a developer, if they choose,
then they will get 20% FAR bonus for so-called, and I say so-called affordable units because it's still going to be very high. But voluntary is voluntary.
I want to ask you about this idea of converting garages, basements, or backyards for homeowners. Now, homeowners may like that because then they can take some income in. Is there a problem with that?
Well, my problem with building an 800-foot separate cottage in your backyard is one thing, you take up 50% of your backyard, you are cutting down trees.
Although if a person chooses to do that,
I'm saying what the problem is, you asked me what my problem is with
Okay.
it. It's increasing impervious surface, and which will affect plumbing, and I'm sorry, flooding.
Flooding, yeah.
It will affect flooding. So you bought a house, and now the person next to you is putting up a 2-story cottage in their yard, and the person on the other side of you. How does that affect your block, your quality of life in using your backyard? And no parking for any of it.
Karen, do you believe that if that happens, there's enough legislation and there are enough rules following so that people, they could put up a trailer, let's say, and call it housing and then rent it for other people, and all of a sudden our standards, that would be my concern, our standards for housing are low.
First of all, there's not enough enforcement in the buildings department, and there's not enough enforcement in mostly any of the agencies that do that. But even the City Planning Commission has their own little secret working group that is trying to figure out how they can do these ADUs, which is what they call them. And luckily,
ADU, what does that stand for?
Accessory dwelling unit.
And I wrote the city council twice asking if someone's building an ADU 10 feet from their house, not attached to their house, how do they hook up their sewer and water lines to the main? I never got an answer. I don't even think they know. And this is very complicated. But listen, it's an issue because people, we have flooding, we have basements with flooding, we have issues, and I understand
People died. You can't just do this. It's just people died.
You don't have the inspection. You don't have the DOB.
Let me put up the some of the City of All proposals. And deepen affordability of housing production, significantly increase funding for affordable housing programs, require affordability in large transit-oriented and town center developments, strengthen support for faith and community-based organizations, affordable housing developments, increase funding and support to strengthen community land trusts. Now, we've covered land trust extensively on this program. You like these proposals? And
a lot of them are motherhood and apple pie, but they're not funded. It's not an excuse to say we're going to vote for City of Yes, and then some mayor sometime in 50 years might give us this.
Well, then let me ask you this. And
that's my problem with it.
Karen could weigh in on this as well. Let's just say that the council members who are meeting in the subcommittee today and or the council members when it goes to the full council on December 5th say, we'd like to use whatever you were going to put into the City of Yes financially and put that into these kinds of proposals supporting affordable housing, et cetera, et cetera. Is that
unfunded.
I'm trying to broker a solution.
That would be good. That would be good. But I have to say, one of the things that this City of All is missing is the fact that there is a double standard in this city. So there are people who live in rent stabilized units, and they are under regulations. The landlord has to do yada, yada, yada. And there are people who are out of rent stabilization. And that just means you can charge as much money as you want. And what they're doing is there's no place in this whole City of Yes that they mention what buildings are going to be in rent stabilized or not. If you're going to build affordable housing and it's not in rent stabilization, you know what the landlords are going to do to the people. It's just a historical thing. There are nobody's watching what's going on in the building, whether they're giving heat, whether they're taking care of repairs. Buildings are falling apart and people are living in them, even in NYCHA.
So,
Gary, I just wanted to add that there are tens of thousands of apartments that have been taken off the market, that are vacant.
I was just going to ask that.
And that is a sin. Tens of thousands.
120,000 units.
So here, Laura, let me ask you this.
Cities.
So let me ask you this.
Let the council address that.
There's a vacant housing issue. One of the other proposals in the City of Yes was the idea of converting hotels and empty hotels, which obviously the industry has changed in New York City, and turning those into housing. Is that a good idea along with the vacancy apartment plan?
You know what, Gary? if there's a ULURP and a public process for the public to weigh in, then a lot of things are possible. But City of Yes is taking away ULURP, participation by the public.
ULURP, for people who don't know, you may explain.
Uniform land use
review process,
right.
Which means if somebody wants to come and turn a hotel into something else, do something else that's outside of the zoning, and wants to have a variance, they have to go to the community board. The community board has public participation. The borough president will weigh in, the city council person, the full city council. So there is public participation. My main problem with City of Yes is that they are gutting public participation. They are gutting this process in order to just have as of right.
And by the way, that is an environmental justice. You cannot take away the people's right to participate unfairly.
You guys are a step ahead of me, because I was going to ask about the vacant apartments, and my next question was going to be about, because Karen, you and both of you represent BCEQ.
Right.
From an environmental perspective, where do you think this City of Yes plan stands, and why?
This is a horrible plan, because what it does is it increases the incentive for people to build at a cheaper rate, and instead of following the rules that we need for climate change for 2030, like they're ignoring it. It just goes wholly against it. And then you're saying, don't worry, we're going to take care of affordable housing later. So what are they going to do? They're going to put the affordable housing next to the bus depot, next to the railroad station, next to, the polluted areas, which is really EJ planning, and it's totally unnecessary. And not only that, the more concrete that you have, the less pervious surface you have.
Sure.
It just keeps increasing the carbon factor and greenhouse gases, and it doesn't take it away. And I know that nobody wants to hear about that, but the fact is, we have to change to a new, humid, subtropical region.
Let me ask you this. This was also in that op-ed piece in the Daily News, saying that, well, look, we're going to put up more housing, and additional housing will force prices down, and so it will kind of organically create affordable housing. Do you
Show me
first?
the place.
Why do you? Why would anyone think? Why would anyone think that building?
Wait, hold on.
All right, Karen, go ahead.
Karen, you go
Show me
first.
a place where your rent went down. Show me who got their rent going down.
Well, I think they meant that it would inspire lower rental developments, I guess.
We have a glut of luxury housing, and thousands and thousands a month. We have a glut of this. We don't need more of it. Building more luxury housing does not help us with the crisis we have, which is affordable housing. It's just, And
on top of it, there's like a building on Broad Street in Manhattan. It's going bankrupt. You know why? Because they give everybody all these incentives. They give them, a gym and a swimming pool and a yoga room and a quiet room and all this crazy stuff to get them into their apartment for $4,000 for a studio. And then also they give them 1 month rent free. But what they're doing is they're trying to develop a system where we have two kinds of people. We have the rich and we have the poor, and we're all in the poor section.
We're just about out of time, so let me just summarize. Karen, we'll give you the first chance here. So are you recommending that they vote no? And if they vote no, what do you do? Or do you say modify it and then vote yes? What's your feeling? And then we'll ask Laura the same question.
I think they could definitely vote no, that this does not do the job. This is about affordability. And instead, they're actually talking about supply, which there's plenty of supply. And they should develop a mechanism that is going to protect the people. Because every single one of these buildings that have been built since then, since all this stuff is going on, not one of them are affordable. Because the rents go up 5% every year, but the payroll doesn't. So people can't afford. If you are going to make $40,000 and you have a family of 4, you are not going to be able to afford $3,000 a month, even if it was a studio.
Got it.
And so this is not solving the problem. You got to solve the problem.
And Laura will give you the final word here.
Look, 50% of Bronx community boards are rent burdened. That means 35% of their income is going now, more than 35%, on rent. That is not going to be solved by City of Yes. I advise they vote no on City of Yes and come back with a workable plan that will meet the needs of Bronxites, of the whole city, because this one size fits all is just nonsense, particularly for the outer boroughs. I mean, it's like the Manhattanization. If Manhattan wants something, they need to present this differently.
But that's different. And I think the one size fits all issue was
big.
I do want to mention I alluded to it at the beginning. The community boards in the Bronx that voted no were 2, 5, 8, 10, 11, and 12. And the ones that supported it were 4, 3, 9, and 7. And at least
with conditions.
With conditions, and Community Board 1 did not weigh in formally on it. Anything else you want to mention before we run?
Yeah, I would just like to say that
Sure.
because we don't know what's going to happen. So if anybody wants to have information, they can go and when you go to the City Council webpage, the first thing says find your elected official, and it's very easy to figure out who it is. Call them up and tell them I like it, I don't like it, whatever. But
let the people weigh in, is what you're saying.
BCQ has on their webpage, bcq.org. What's new? The first thing is now we're at the City Council and some information is there.
Any last words from you?
Well, I think the media should not continue to be snookered by the PR ditty, a little bit of housing in every neighborhood, because that is a ridiculous...
Way to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, Laura Spalter and Karen Argenti, thank you. Listen, you both will be happy to know that next week we are going to be talking about two great Bronx organizations that are merging to get a wider reach throughout our communities. That'll be next week's show. We thank our producer, Rebecca Hemick, director Will Guzman. Urelis Encarnacion is on graphics, Ian Neville on audio. The editor is Diaz. We have a cast of thousands working with us here in the studio. And of course to you too. We're nothing without you, the people in the Bronx.
Thank you, Gary, for inviting
No
us.
problem.
Thank you. I hope we come back.
And if the curtain don't fall and the creek don't rise, yes, I will be back. We will be back next week. Goodbye.